Imagine watching your government deploy over $11 billion in just 6 days to fight a war on the completely opposite side of the planet,
Right.
only to find out that your local high school has to shut down because there isn't enough fuel to run the buses, or, you can't even get through a standard domestic airport security line.
It is a massive disconnect.
It really is. Welcome to today's deep dive, where global chaos is cashing in right at your local zip code. Today is Thursday, March 12th, 2026.
And honestly, looking at the sheer volume of developments today, it feels a bit like drinking from a fire hose of global chaos.
Oh, absolutely. The traditional boundaries of news where you have foreign policy over here and your local economy over there, those are completely dissolving.
Yeah, we are looking at an absolute textbook definition of a cascading crisis.
We really are. And we have a massive stack of sources on the table in front of us today to help make sense of all this.
Breaking updates from the Associated Press, Al Jazeera, The Guardian, PBS News, and The Times of India.
Exactly. But our mission for this deep dive is not just to read you a list of terrifying headlines. We're here to connect the dots.
Because none of this happens in a vacuum.
Right. We're going to trace the shockwaves of this rapidly escalating U.S.-Israel-Iran conflict. We'll start right at the military epicenter, follow the ripples as they tear through the physical mechanisms of the global economy, and then see exactly how this geopolitical storm crashes onto our domestic shores to impact your daily life.
A kinetic event thousands of miles away eventually reaches into your wallet, dictates the price of your groceries, and, well, fundamentally tests the security apparatus of your own neighborhood.
Okay, let's unpack this, because right now, the current geopolitical landscape looks like a massive, highly unstable row of dominoes.
Yeah, but it's not a standard set.
No, not at all. This is a row where every falling piece gets exponentially heavier, and the first ones are falling incredibly fast in the Middle East right now.
Right. Let's start at the military epicenter.
Yeah.
Central Command is reporting that a U.S. military refueling aircraft has crashed in western Iraq.
And the details coming out are pretty tense, right?
Very. This actually involved two aircraft operating in tandem. One managed to land safely, but the other went down.
Oh, man. Do we know about the crew?
Rescue efforts are actively underway as we speak. But the critical piece of data from the military right now is that there's zero indication of hostile or friendly fire at this time.
Wait, hold on. If there's no hostile fire, how does a military aircraft just go down in the middle of a war zone?
Well, mid-air refueling is it's one of the most mechanically complex and dangerous logistical maneuvers a military can execute, even in perfect peacetime conditions.
Right, you're flying a massive gas station in the sky.
Exactly. You have two massive jets flying at hundreds of miles an hour, essentially tethered together by a fuel line. Add the sheer operational tempo of the current airspace, pilot exhaustion, the electronic warfare environment, and the margin for mechanical error just drops to zero.
Wow.
Yeah, even a non-hostile crash in this region is a massive logistical and strategic nightmare, simply because of where the recovery teams have to operate.
Which is a highly combustible airspace. Because right next door to Iraq, Israel has just struck 10 Hezbollah targets in central Beirut.
And they issued widespread evacuation orders for the surrounding urban areas.
Yeah, and simultaneously, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu went on record claiming that Iranian nuclear scientists have been killed, while also issuing a very thinly veiled threat directed at Iran's brand new leadership.
That claim about the nuclear scientists, I mean, that is a profound intelligence flex.
How so?
It's not just about taking out technical expertise, it's a psychological operation. It's Israel broadcasting to the highest levels of the Iranian government that their most secure, highly classified assets are completely compromised.
Jeez. And Iran is obviously not just absorbing this.
No, they are actively returning fire. We have reports of a heavy Iranian missile barrage launched straight into northern Israel, actually impacting residential areas.
The kinetic warfare is fully unchained now. But right in the middle of all these missiles flying, we have this massive leadership shift in Tehran.
Right. Iran has a new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei.
And there were all those swirling rumors that he was in a coma. Right?
Yeah, but he shattered those by issuing his first public remarks today. He vowed to fight on. He demanded the immediate closure of all U.S. bases in the region, and almost instantly, he received a public message of unwavering support from Russia's Vladimir Putin.
The timing of Putin's statement is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
Oh, absolutely.
So I have to ask you about this dynamic. Is Mojtaba Khamenei's incredibly aggressive first statement actually a sign of supreme military confidence? Or is it a necessary political survival move? Like, does he just need to prove his strength to his hardline base on day one of his rule?
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychology of authoritarian succession.
Okay.
When a new leader takes power in a highly tense, rigid system, especially in the middle of an active, hot war, they do not have the luxury of nuance.
Right.
They cannot afford to look pragmatic
Yeah.
because in that specific power structure, pragmatism looks exactly like weakness to the military hardliners who actually keep the regime from collapsing from the inside.
So he has to instantly consolidate power by being the loudest, most aggressive voice in the room.
Exactly. By demanding the closure of U.S. bases and projecting absolute defiance, he is signaling to his own Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps that the old guard's mission continues without a single disruption.
He's securing his right flank.
Yeah. And Putin stepping in immediately with unwavering support isn't just a friendly greeting. It's a massive geopolitical signal to the West that Iran is not isolated.
Oh, I see.
That external backing bolsters Mojtaba's internal legitimacy on his very first day on the job.
But there's a glaring paradox here, right? We're talking about all this kinetic military posturing, but modern wars aren't just fought with missiles and drone strikes.
No, they are fought with money, trade, and logistics.
And that takes us directly to the physical choke point of the global economy, because the aggression we just talked about isn't just making headlines, it is actively strangling the global supply chain.
Which is where you, as a listener, start to feel the actual impact.
Right. The Strait of Hormuz is essentially the global economy's jugular vein. You pinch that, and the entire body goes into shock.
And according to our sources, that strait is effectively closed right now.
Yeah, Khamenei has flat out stated it will stay closed to pressure their enemies.
Let's look at the immediate global panic this triggers. Oil has instantaneously jumped back over $100 per barrel.
Wow.
Yeah, and global stocks are sinking rapidly because the market despises uncertainty above all else. And a closed Strait of Hormuz is the ultimate uncertainty.
But help me connect the dots here. How does a political statement about closing a strait actually physically stop the ships? I mean, it's not like there's a giant gate they swing shut across the ocean.
It comes down to maritime insurance. This is the invisible gear that runs global trade.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, we're reading that a U.S.-owned oil tanker was set ablaze in Iraq by an Iranian suicide boat. Tragically, the Indian crew on board was killed.
Oh, that is awful.
It is. And 3 other merchant ships have also been struck.
No.
So when a tanker gets hit, maritime insurance providers in London and New York immediately pull their coverage for that entire region. Or they hike the premiums by like 500%.
Wow, so it just becomes mathematically impossible to do business.
Precisely. Shipping conglomerates look at the insurance premiums, they look at the physical danger to their crews, and they just refuse to sail.
Which means they reroute entirely around the continent of Africa.
Yeah, exactly. Which adds weeks to the transit time and millions in fuel costs. When the ships stop taking the shortcut, the goods stop arriving on time.
And we are seeing the localized fallout of this in real time. In Bahrain, their airport fuel tanks caught fire from a drone strike.
Right.
And in Dubai, the UAE had to intercept 10 ballistic missiles. The debris literally rained down on Sheikh Zayed Road, which is the main multi-lane artery running right through the center of the city.
It completely disrupts the very core of everyday life. The UAE actually had to cancel the ICSE and ISC board exams for students across the Emirates strictly due to security concerns.
Wait, really? Just completely cancel them?
Yes. Now, for context, these are massive, high-stakes, standardized tests for the huge Indian expatriate community living there.
Right, those are huge.
Imagine being a high school student, prepping for years for the single exam that dictates your university future, and it's canceled because ballistic missile interceptors are going off over your neighborhood.
That is wild. And as you move further east, the economic shockwaves hit with devastating force. Pakistan is scrambling right now.
Yeah, the reports say they are down to just 26 days of fuel reserves.
26 days? That's nothing. They are actively considering a 4-day work week and shutting down schools across the country just to conserve energy. Walk me through that. If a tanker gets hit in the Middle East, why does a school in Pakistan have to turn its lights off?
Because countries like Pakistan rely on what's called just-in-time delivery for their liquid natural gas and oil.
Okay.
They don't have massive, endless subterranean reserves to tap into. They rely on a constant, uninterrupted conveyor belt of ships arriving every single week to feed their power grid.
So when you kink the garden hose of the global economy at the Strait of Hormuz, the pressure drops instantly down the line.
Exactly. A 3-day delay in shipping literally means rolling blackouts in South Asia.
Which brings us right into your driveway. When a country like Pakistan has to consider shutting down its economy for a day a week to save gas, that slows down global manufacturing.
Mhm.
When insurance rates for cargo ships skyrocket, that extra transit cost gets baked into the price of every single item you buy at the store.
The pain you feel at the gas pump today is the direct result of that geopolitical jugular vein being pinched.
It's all tethered together, which brings us to a really uncomfortable realization when we look at our own domestic situation.
It really does.
We've established the immense financial and military cost of securing this global supply chain. Let's look at how a country currently projecting immense power abroad handles its own internal stability.
The sources reveal a glaring, almost surreal contrast.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's look at the financial toll first. The Pentagon just formally informed Congress that the U.S. spent over $11.3 billion in just the first 6 days of this war,
Over $11 billion.
in less than a week.
The sheer scale of that expenditure is staggering. It demonstrates an incredible, almost unrivaled capacity for rapid, massive logistical deployment when it comes to funding foreign conflict.
Right, but wait. Help me reconcile this, because at the exact same time, the U.S. Senate just held a routine vote to fund the Department of Homeland Security, and it failed.
The vote was 51 to 46.
Yeah. This means the Homeland Security shutdown is now nearing the 1-month mark. How does that gridlock exist simultaneously with such rapid military spending?
This raises an important question about structural resource allocation. The mechanisms for emergency defense spending are entirely separate and often much more insulated from partisan gridlock than domestic agency budgets.
That makes sense structurally, I guess.
But the real-world impact of that domestic gridlock is highly visible to anyone trying to live their normal life right now.
Yeah, we are seeing reports that over 300 TSA employees have simply left their jobs. Airport absences are surging.
And it is causing massive, sprawling, multi-hour lines at the nation's airports. Lawmakers are venting their frustration, but the gridlock remains.
And this is where we get into the mechanics of domestic infrastructure. A major airport security checkpoint operates on incredibly tight margins.
Right. If you have a 10% reduction in TSA staff at a major hub like Atlanta or Chicago, it doesn't just mean a 10% longer wait.
The system bottlenecks. Security lanes close, flights are delayed, connecting flights are missed, and the entire domestic travel network begins to mathematically fall apart.
So we have a situation where the U.S. can rapidly deploy over $11 billion to intercept missiles thousands of miles away.
But if you try to catch a domestic flight to see your family, you'll find the government literally cannot fund its own security checkpoints.
It's wild. International crises have a tendency to act as a massive magnifying glass. They exacerbate existing domestic political fractures. When the world is on fire, and you are projecting all your strength outward, any cracks in your own foundation become dangerously apparent.
And tragically, we are seeing those cracks manifest in severe domestic anxiety and violence. The FBI is investigating 2 horrific incidents. In Michigan, a man rammed his vehicle into a synagogue in a fatal attack.
Awful.
The Department of Homeland Security noted the suspect was a naturalized citizen from Lebanon, and the FBI is explicitly calling this an act of targeted violence.
And furthermore, at Old Dominion University in Virginia, there was a shooting that left 1 person dead and 2 others hurt.
Just terrible.
The FBI identified the shooter as an ISIS supporter who had just been released from federal prison in 2024.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the only reason the casualty count wasn't significantly higher is that ROTC students, these are university students, undergoing collegiate military training, were in the classroom and heroically used their training to physically subdue him.
Now, before we go further, it is crucial we state this clearly for you listening. As we synthesize these sources, our job on this deep dive is not to take a political stance regarding the nuances of the Middle East conflict, the partisan gridlock over DHS funding, or the ideologies driving these domestic attacks.
Absolutely not.
We are strictly looking at the raw data exactly as laid out by the AP and PBS. Our goal is to simply show you the stark reality of these logistical and security contrasts without putting a thumb on the scale.
It is an objectively profound contrast to analyze, though. It forces a society to examine the delicate balance between projecting overwhelming strength abroad and maintaining basic cohesion at home.
Right.
When domestic tension is running this high and essential security personnel are forced to work without funding, the overall resilience of the nation is severely tested.
It is deeply heavy. And look, if you are feeling the absolute weight of this news cycle right now, you are absolutely not alone.
Not at all.
But here is the thing about global events. Human society is radically unpredictable. And entirely separate from these ancient, heavy conflicts, there are completely bizarre, fascinating shifts happening elsewhere.
The world doesn't stop spinning just because one region is in crisis. The human element continues to disrupt things in entirely new ways.
Exactly. So let's take a breath and pivot to the unexpected. Because right in the middle of all this geopolitical dread, South Asia just experienced a massive, unprecedented political earthquake.
Oh, this story is what?
In Nepal, an ex-rapper named Balendra Shah has swept to power in a landslide election victory.
A literal landslide.
He completely unseated the old, deeply entrenched political guard, and he did it with the massive backing of a powerful youth movement.
It's an incredible story of systemic disruption.
And we also promised a palate cleanser from the oddities section of the Associated Press to balance things out today.
We did.
Apparently, there is a viral video making the rounds of a raccoon going on a full-blown drunken rampage inside a Virginia liquor store.
I saw that.
It ended with the raccoon simply passing out cold on the bathroom floor.
I mean, given the state of the global supply chain, I suppose even the local wildlife needs to take the edge off.
Right. Honestly, I think we all relate to that raccoon right now. But pushing back on the Nepal story for a second, because that is genuinely massive. So what does this all mean?
Yeah, it's a big question.
Is Balendra Shah's victory just an isolated, quirky incident in Nepal? Or are we looking at a legitimate blueprint for how Gen Z might globally disrupt traditional political monopolies?
If we look at the data, it's highly likely to be the latter. This is really about the mechanics of modern campaigning.
Okay, how so?
Traditional political systems often fail to adapt to the economic and social realities of their younger populations. They rely on old patronage networks and, television ads.
Right, the old playbook.
But Gen Z utilizes decentralized digital networks. They mobilize on platforms where the old guard doesn't even exist. When an establishment is seen as entrenched and disconnected, it creates a massive vacuum.
And nature abhors a vacuum.
Exactly. In politics, unconventional candidates, like an ex-rapper who inherently understands how to communicate directly and authentically with the youth, will inevitably bypass the traditional machine and fill that void.
Wow.
It's a massive warning shot to established political parties everywhere. If you don't speak the language of the future will simply organize online and vote you out.
It really is a testament to the fact that while the world feels locked into these heavy historical conflicts, entirely new paradigms are constantly breaking through the cracks.
Change is a constant, even when it's born out of sheer frustration with the status quo.
So let's bring this deep dive full circle. We started by looking at the incredible complexities of a military aircraft going down in Iraq and missiles flying over the airspace of Israel and Lebanon.
Yep.
But as we've seen, those events don't stay neatly contained in a foreign news section.
They never do. The compartments are an illusion.
That missile fired in the Middle East ripples out to freeze global shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. It spikes maritime insurance rates.
It drains the physical fuel reserves in Pakistan.
It drives up the price of gas at your local station, and it stands in this incredibly stark, jarring contrast to the unfunded, sprawling TSA lines at your local airport and the gridlock happening in the U.S. Senate.
Because being well-informed doesn't just mean knowing the basic facts of what happened today.
Yeah.
Anyone can scroll through a list of headlines.
Exactly.
Being well-informed means understanding the invisible mechanical threads connecting these massive global events to your own wallet, your own daily commute, and your own neighborhood security.
Spot on. So we want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
Wow.
We've talked a lot today about billions